Bloodthirsters, known by many bloody titles such as the Lords of Skulls, the Fists of KHORNE, the Drinkers of Blood, the Eaters of Gore and Flesh, the High-Handed Slayers, the Deathbringers of KHORNE, the Bloodied Ones, and the Guardians of the Throne, are not only the most deadly of KHORNE's servants, but the mightiest of all demonic warriors. A single such beast is a harbinger of bellowing death, is destructive beyond telling, and lives only to slaughter, maim, and destroy all that it encounters. It is the fury of war given form, the unfettered primal rage of the world made manifest. Such should be expected of a beast whose master is the god of bloodletting, slaughter, and murder. Those few who have confronted a bloodthirster and survived commonly recall an overwhelming impression of vast size and unchecked barbarity, of roaring and snarling death riding upon Stygian wings that eclipse the sun. A bloodthirster's ruddy skin is covered with coarse fur and brass armor, slick and gleaming with the blood of innumerable victims. This armor is forged upon the demon's flesh by KHORNE himself, and thereafter becomes a living part of the demon, even whilst maintaining a brutal intelligence of its own. As such, even the bloodthirster's armor is wrathful and longs for slaughter. In one hand, the bloodthirster carries an ensorcelled axe that thirsts for blood and slaughter. In the other, the demon wields a cruelly barbed lash, with which it can easily flay the flesh from a victim's bones. These weapons are wielded with unbelievable force, propelled by muscles as hard as iron, and driven by a timeless fury that neither slackens nor fades. These Lords of Skulls are the greatest and most powerful servants of the Blood God. Indeed, they are the most favoured of all of KHORNE's servants. Their bloodlust extends far beyond mortal comprehension, and no amount of killing, no quantity of corpses is ever enough, for the fists of KHORNE ever want more death. One may talk with a bloodthirster, for they speak all the tongues of mortals, every dialect, every strain. This is of little avail, for all that the Lords of Skulls wish is to slaughter the world and lay its steaming carcass at the feet of KHORNE. The bloodthirster exists only to kill, raising its head to the brooding sky to take in the stink of blood and death as it claims yet more skulls for the Skull Throne. On the battlefield, the bloodthirster is the master of war. He binds his legions to his murderous will, driving his forces to acts of greater slaughter that exalt the name of KHORNE. They are beings of incredible cunning, instinctively capable of defeating the best and brightest mortal generals. They can sense which way a battle is flowing, instantly seizing the chance to use their blades and troops to the greatest effect. When they join the battle, they are terrifying opponents. With each sweep of their dreaded rune axes, they level entire regiments. Their mere presence scorches the earth with potential violence, and the beating of their wings stirs up violent storms as if awakening the very skies to the hatred that boils in KHORNE's veins. It is especially dangerous in that it combines malign intelligence with brute strength. No man can stand against the bloodthirster, for it throws itself into every fight with abandon, butchering anything it can with no regard for itself. It screams challenges to mortal foes, heedless of the consequences of its hate. What's worse is that the appearance of such a creature emboldens the other servants of the Blood God, inciting them to near suicidal frenzies. As walking demigods of death, nothing short of an entire army can halt the progress of this implacable foe. The birth of a bloodthirster into the old world ravages the land, sending waves of rippling wickedness in all directions, infecting mortals with its hate and thirst for violence. For miles around, the sky darkens, taking on a ghastly hue as clouds swollen with blood race across the firmament, spilling torrents of crimson rain onto the land. Black lightning flashes amidst these stinking abominations, lancing from the chaos-racked heavens to set fire to the earth. As the greater demon draws closer to its enemies, waves of its essence roll from its massive form, contaminating the hearts and minds of those mortals in its path. Tempers shorten, and emotions run wild. Fights break out over minor or even just perceived offences, and as the demon draws closer, the conflicts turn violent, as former friends struggle to kill one another due to the rage that burns in their hearts. Other phenomena testify to the bloodthirster's power. Animals turn rabid, acting strange and attacking without provocation. The demon's presence causes plant life to change, growing thorns or even teeth that gnash at the air, searching for the flesh of the living. And worst of all, inanimate objects perspire. Beads of black blood dot the surface and run, dripping down the lengths of blades or mixing with the fluid in cups. And then it comes. Black clouds spill over the land, blotting out the sun. Flashing within its cyclopean depths are flashes of red lightning accompanied by booming roars that unman even the boldest heroes, or drive them to unearthly acts of violence. And when the acidic rains begin to fall, and when the wind drives the droplets horizontal, a massive entity drops from the eye of violence, unfolding as it does to reveal a demon, massive in size with oozing red skin and a mane of gore-encrusted hair. It is the personification of killing. It is the bloodthirster. It flies on great pinions that beat with a slow rhythm, sending the stench of blood and brass with each stroke of its black wings. Its merest presence stirs the hearts of men to violence, evoking dark thoughts and the bloodlust that demands to be quenched. The bloodthirster is a massive dog-faced demon. It has crimson skin that perspires blood. It has the lower legs of a beast, blending the traits of a goat and bull with the upper body of a man, though covered in thick curly black hair that's sodden with gore. Atop its neck is a bestial tusked head fitted with two bull horns that spread to either side. The horns and head of this demon are decorated with profane symbols of KHORNE. From its back spread two massive leathery wings, not unlike those of a dragon. Covering its body are plates of chaos armor, bolted directly to its bone and fused to its flesh. Many drinkers of blood also tear the faces of their victims from their skulls to add them to their armor like some perverse purity scroll. Most bloodthirsters wield demonic axes known simply as the axes of KHORNE. Said to contain the essence of failed demons, these weapons are noted for cutting through flesh and armor with ease. Some of these demons also wield great whips made from the cured hides of Slaneshi worshippers, each snap sounding of moans and screams, the cursed souls languishing in eternal suffering. Bloodthirster emits a profane aura of wrath and hate that fuels the beast within all mortals, emboldening them to more daring acts of slaughter. But even the feelings of bloodlust do not stiffen the spines enough of those who see this demon in the flesh. Those who have witnessed firsthand the might of a fist of KHORNE go mad from the experience, their minds destroyed by the sheer magnitude of its power and the implications of its purpose. When the bloodthirster appears, it unleashes its awful roar, splitting the air with the sound of 1,000 screeching souls wailing at once. Those unfortunate to hear the call of the bloodthirster find their souls shriveled, consumed by the fires of hate. The reverberating noise drives all who hear it mad, forcing them into an orgy of slaughter, whereby mortals set upon each other with frightening abandon, slaughtering friend and foe alike. Though the carnage created by human hands is horrid, nothing compares to when the bloodthirster wades into the midst of their armies. Their massive forms blot out the sun, the stench of gore and death from choking clouds of decay that paralyze their enemies with nausea. The sweeping blows of their demonic axes and whips cry out with each stroke, causing their victims to explode as if they were swollen sacks of blood. As the bloodthirster kills, a cloud of crimson mist hangs in the air about it. Bloodthirsters have no sorcerer's abilities, for KHORNE loathes such eldritch trickery and shuns the practice of the magical arts. Rather, a bloodthirster resonates with an echo of his dark liege's wrathful contempt. Indeed, the presence of a wizard amongst the enemy ranks inevitably makes a bloodthirster fight with even more fury than is normal, if such a thing could be imagined. It is more than mere wrath that allows a bloodthirster to eclipse other greater demons. Neither does his irresistible strength guarantee primacy, nor skills earned in an eternity of battle. Rather, it is all of these traits shackled to the bloodthirster's bestial and predatory nature. Within the bloodthirster's raging mind, there is no thought, no deliberation, no appreciation of intrigue or manipulation. It thinks only of the hunt, of the blood to be spilled in KHORNE's name, and the skulls to be gathered for the blood god's mighty throne. Thus is the bloodthirster the most relentless and single-minded of all demons. Others will sometimes retire from battle if overmatched, to husband strength and bring more insidious talents into play, but not so a bloodthirster. Should a greater demon of KHORNE find itself outnumbered, surrounded, mortally wounded, or even beset by a hero empowered with divine might, it does not stop fighting. Such is the nature of a bloodthirster. It does not retreat, does not falter, but roars fresh defiance with every blow, swinging its axe with ever more bloodlust, and cleaving fresh skulls for KHORNE with each unstoppable strike. By the end times, the bloodthirsters were known by a selection of numbered hosts, each of which had a purpose to the blood god. The bloodthirsters of unfettered fury are supremely skilled warriors. These rage-filled killing machines can smash enemy regiments asunder with a single bellowing charge, their violent onset enough to swing whole battles in favor of KHORNE's legions. In one of their mighty fists, the bloodthirsters of unfettered fury wield heavy-bladed axes. These murderous weapons thirst endlessly for blood and slaughter. Moreover, they are swung with such unstoppable force that they can easily hack a mortal foe in two, or demolish the stoutest shield wall. In the other hand, these bloodthirsters wield a cruelly barbed lash. When sent whipping out, these dread weapons split the air with a deafening crack. Such whips can break a dragon's wing in with a single blow, or throttle the life from even the most tenacious foe. Every demon of unfettered fury is armed thusly, for these are the ritualistic weapons of the 8th host within the Blood God's legions. At any time there will be 888 of these monsters in their master's service. This is not to say that the 8th host is somehow weak or lacking. Every one of these mighty demons can hack a red path of ruin through almost any warrior foolish enough to face them. Across the ages, it has been the bloodthirst of unfettered fury that have most often taken to the battlefields of the mortal world. Indeed, in the minds of mortals, they are the most renowned and therefore the most feared of all their kind. When KHORNE's legions march to war, they often do so under the generalship of these raging demons. Each bloodthirster of unfettered fury is an accomplished, if homicidally direct battlefield commander, forever driving their armies onward into enemy lines. The strategies of these cornered demon lords often seem crude or foolhardy to their foes, for they will hurl their followers into the most savage meat grinder with not a moment's hesitation. However, the bloodthirsters know that sending their warriors into the teeth of the enemy's defenses will lead to massive casualties on both sides. Indeed, they count upon it. KHORNE only cares to see battle in his name, and the blood of his vassals satisfies just as well as that of foes. In victory or defeat, only the most psychotic and determined devotees of KHORNE survive such tactics. These individuals, of course, are the ones whose service KHORNE most desires. Thus it is no accident that a battle led by a bloodthirst of unfettered fury is an exacting crucible of butchery. These blood-hungry demon lords seek to hone their hordes as a headsman hones his axe, until only the lethal edge remains. Beyond leading cornered war hosts, the 8th hosts have numerous duties. Sometimes they will be dispatched either alone or in the terrifying warbands known as Skull Wrath Slaughter Bands to hunt down the greatest champions of the foe. These they lay low in battle, mastering them effortlessly and carving them to gory chunks before bearing their skulls back to the brass citadel. Beyond the walls of that vast bastion, it is the unfettered fury that acts as KHORNE's first line of defense. To these bloodthirsters falls the duty of prowling the blood-strewn wastes that lie within the citadel's furnace-hot shadow. It is these bloodthirsters who lead roaming bands of cornered demons on endless sweeping patrols, and they who watch over the approaches to the gates. The bloodthirsters of insensate rage are amongst the most terrifying of all their kind. The boom of their wing beats jars brutally within mortal minds, shattering thoughts like a hammer blow. Those engulfed in their shadow feel all hope desert them, gagging on the sudden taste of ash and blood that fills their mouths. The bellows of these beasts reverberate through reality, even the stoutest warriors quaking in fear at the sound. These greater demons wield massive demonic axes, grotesquely huge weapons several times the height of a mortal man. So heavy are these axes that even the bloodletters of other ranks might struggle to wield them. Yet those of insensate rage are imbued with an endless fury that eclipses all else. Their boundless anger lends them such strength that they not only heft their axes with ease, but can fight on for hours, even days at a time. There is no fitness in the fighting style of the insensate rage. The fires of KHORNE's great forge blaze within their chests, filling their veins with roiling firestorms of white-hot anger. Thus their every word is a howled imprecation or bellowed war cry, and their every axe swing is a wild sweep that strikes with the force of a meteor. A bloodthirst of insensate rage can stave in a castle door with a single blow, all up the head from the mightiest beast. Whole ranks of lesser warriors are skiffed down with every swing, or flung through the air in broken, bloody ruin. Such a blood-mad fighting style leaves these bloodthirsters open to attack. They give no thought whatsoever to their own defense. Indeed, the blows of the enemy barely register within the inferno of their thoughts. Yet it does not matter. The sheer fury of these bloodthirsters carries them through the worst that the foe can hurl their way. Missile rains clang from their armor, or thud ignored into their smouldering hides. Eldritch spellcraft billows about them with no more effect than a gentle breeze, not halting their charge in the slightest. Once the bloodthirster of the sixth host has built up momentum, lesser foes simply vanish beneath its pounding hooves, ground to bloody paste without ever being noticed at all. Only the greatest of foes can stand against the incensed rage. Even then, by meeting one of these beasts in battle, they are only fulfilling its true purpose. The leadership qualities of these raging demon lords extend little beyond forging a path for the hordes that follow behind. Their true task, the role given to them by KHORNE, is the slaying of great beasts. It was a bloodthirster of insensate rage that finally felled the six-headed giant Behemogoth, claiming every one of that mountainous horror's skulls for KHORNE. When the mighty dragon Silokai was finally laid low, it was beneath the axe blows of a bloodthirst of the sixth host. With every passing day, the bloodthirsters of insensate rage slay innumerable champions and mighty beasts, garnering great trophies that are mounted upon jagged brass spikes within the blood god's throne room. On the rare occasions when these bloodthirsters are recalled to the brass citadel, it is to provide their lord with entertainment. They have no assigned duties within KHORNE's mighty fortress, for their uncontrollable fury precludes all but the most violent of tasks. Instead, the bloodthirsters of insensate rage are hurled into the deep, spike-lined fighting rings of the Nether Pit by KHORNE himself. There, the bloodthirsters fight for their master's pleasure, either against one another or battling the mightiest monsters from KHORNE's horrific menagerie. So does the blood god keep his mightiest berserkers occupied, until war most worthy calls them forth once more. KHORNE dreams of whole realms drowned in slaughter, and cares little for the fates of individual combatants, be they worshipper or foe. However, just as mortal champions may win KHORNE's approval, so there are those whose defiance draws the personal ire of the blood god down upon them. Punishing such individuals falls to the wrath of KHORNE, headsman of KHORNE. Whether they are a hero who has defied KHORNE's will, some brave priest who has banished KHORNE's demons, or simply one who has offended the blood god, the victims of these bloodthirsters will all meet the same doom. The bloodthirsters of the third host are tireless executioners. They take vast pride in the successful completion of the hunt, stalking their prey across all of reality if they must. Relentless, the wrath of KHORNE live for the thrill of the hunt, their baying packs running the prey to the ground, no matter how long or how arduous the chase. It is a rare and fortunate quarry indeed that lives to tell the tale. Sometimes these bloodthirsters will fight alone, their pride driving them to prove their superiority over the prey unaided. However, these greater demons know better than to court KHORNE's wrath by risking failure. Where the target surrounds themselves with armies of defenders, The wrath of KHORNE's bloodthirsters will lead a mighty blood hunt to sweep them aside. Comprised of KHORNE's most predatory demons, these cavalcades of carnage thunder out from the blood god's realm, baying for the skulls of their foes. As with the other hosts, the wrath of KHORNE bloodthirsters bear distinctive armaments that mark them out. In one hand they carry axes of prodigious size, their hafts comprise of the skulls of champions. In the other, they wield long hammer flails, each link forged from the armor of a slain hero. These weapons can be used to strike crushing blows against foes beyond arm's reach, or entangle and choke larger enemies such as other greater demons or monsters. KHORNE knows that his headsman's quarry often resort to the use of magic in their own defense, or else surround themselves with masses of expendable underlings behind whom they hope to hide. Thus the wrath of KHORNE bloodthirsters wear scorched crowns upon their brows. These baleful rune-etched artifacts are powerfully warded against sorcery, allowing their wearer to shrug off all but the most potent spellcraft. Furthermore, these bloodthirsters are able to channel their rage and hate into a roaring gout of hellfire, which they belch forth from between their gaping jaws to incinerate hordes of luckless victims. Once the wrath of KHORNE begin the hunt, there is little chance that their prey will escape the terrible fate that awaits them. Bloodletters, known also as KHORNE's Chosen, the Teeth of Death, Naked Slayers, Takers of Skulls, or the Horned Ones, are the demonic foot soldiers in KHORNE's legions. Bloodletters gather in regiments, chanting their brutal praises to KHORNE. Each unit of bloodletters marches beneath a gore-soaked banner upon which the names of their victims are inscribed. When loosened to the fray, bloodletters sprint from one enemy to the next, hacking the foe apart before springing away in search of new victims. With each fresh kill, the bloodletters loose great shouts of victory that echo across the battlefield and chill the souls of all who hear it. Each bloodletter carries a hell blade, a jagged iron sword whose blackened blade grows with heinous enchantment. A wound from one of these weapons can slay even the hardiest heroes, draining their soul and sucking dry their shriveled corpse. The Hellblade is formed from the bloodletter's own essence and can never be discarded nor torn from its grasp. Each life taken by the Hellblade strengthens the bloodletter, fueling both its power and rage. As such, a bloodletter is even more terrifying at a battle's close than its start, having gorged itself on the slaughter it has caused, overwhelmed by the need to take more skulls for KHORNE. These creatures are the lower demons in the pantheon of KHORNE. They fight as KHORNE's foot soldiers in vicious mobs, which are keen for blood. There is no foul trick or cruel tactic that is beneath them. They represent all that is vile and low in battle, the cruel savagery, the desperate ferocity, and the gleeful sadism when victory is seized. Bloodletters in their favoured state stand taller than a man, though they are stooped and hunched so their faces lie at a height similar to ours. Their bodies are slim, but muscled, and their feet are turned and cloven like those of a goat. They wear naught but scraps of armour and plate, most often brass or bronze, stamped and pressed in demonic forges and welded there upon their bodies. Their skin beneath runs from the deepest red to near orange and drips constantly with blood. Their heads are stretched tall with two rigid horns coloured as a bone, sprouting from their temples. Their faces are overlarge, with the skin pulled, so it appears as a skull. Their eyes are deeply set, milk-white and without pupils. They have sharp fanged teeth, behind which lies a long black tongue that slides and caresses their razor-toothed mouths. Their spit is said to be an acid that may burn metal and scourge skin. Their faces are framed by shaggy manes that run down their backs. Their hair is like black wire, moulded and spiked by gore, and their horns and claws are blackened and flecked with crimson. They march forward in serried ranks, carrying tattered banners and other unholy marks of their devotion, and as they march, there can be heard a Saracen chanting, a litany of words that some claim are evil enchantments, while others swear they hear the names of fallen comrades. Once they have closed in with their foe, however, their order is lost, as they work themselves into a frenzy at the prospect of bloodletting. They will charge forward, shrieking the praises of their lord. There they may fight with blade, axe, or any manner of weapon, or even with tooth and claw, for they care not how the blood is spilt, they care only that it flows. Their arms and bodies are the stuff of chaos, and will tear through all that does not bear the protective enchantments of Sigma, just as only consecrated weapons or the purifying fire may stand a chance of killing these fell beasts. Though it is in battle that they be found, first and foremost, the touch of evil spreads into every mortal heart, and with that follows the demonic. Thus it is not only the warriors of Kislev and the north that need fear the threat of the demon, but us all. They are eternal and uncaring of the passing of the ages, and can exist wherever the corruption runs deep. In the Ordre de Martin L'Antre, the questing knights do battle with these demons in the Bretonnian Heartwood. In Imperial Chronicles, witch hunters have discovered them in villages deep within the Empire, and the legends are many of the wandering bands of adventurers who have laced these monsters deep within damnable shrines of the mountains and wastelands, forgotten by all except the creatures that protect them. Numberless, they fight amongst each other for the honor of being dispatched to the mortal world, to take the fight against those who oppose chaos and chop their enemies into quivering pieces of meat. They are full of hate, and they live to fight. They are carnage incarnate, and they only know killing. These demons are tall, rangy humanoids with snarling bestial faces twisted with rage. Their monstrous visages are framed by horns sprouting from the sides of their skulls. Their blood-red skin is hard as brass forged upon the anvil of ceaseless war. They frequently paint their bodies with the gore from their enemies. They always fight with terrible swords known as hellblades, laughing when they thump into the flesh of their foes. When they march, they chant the names of those they've slain in battle. Flesh hounds, known also as the dogs of war, the blood trackers, the inevitable ones, the flesh renders, or the hounds of wrath, are rapacious wolf-like demons, both reptilian and savagely canine in aspect. The flesh hounds are KHORNE's blood hunters, light yet powerful, able to dart aside from a swordsman's strike and pull a knight from the saddle as part of the same fluid motion. KHORNE favors his flesh hounds above all the other demons in his service, and he lavishes them with generous gifts. All flesh hounds wear an ornate brass circlet about their scaly necks. These collars of KHORNE are forged in the heat of the blood god's rage at the very foot of the skull throne. Thus empowered, these studded bands render flesh-hounds all but immune to the effects of hostile magic, for KHORNE loathes to see his chosen servants felled by the perfidious practice of the arcane. Many flesh-hounds also bear other brands and trinkets. Skull-runed rivets, iron plates, bone fetishes, and brass chains are all common adornments, granted for felling especially mighty warriors or hated foes. Some of the oldest and most baleful flesh-hounds bear many dozens of such tokens, so much so that they clink and clatter with every loping step. When a being, mortal or demon, rouses the blood god's ire, he rises from the skull throne and sounds a single sonorous note on a great brass horn. This blast echoes through the mortal and demonic realms alike as a peal of portentous thunder, rousing flesh-hounds from their slumber and loosening them upon the hunt. Few can survive gory pursuit by these relentless carnivores, for flesh-hounds are faultless and instinctive trackers, able to harry their quarry across fen, forest, and stone without once losing the scent or tiring of the chase. Bloodletters commonly run and leap in the flesh-hound's wake, ever eager to claim part of the spoils and sup the blood of the fallen. Wherever the foul demons of the blood god may stride the land, always at their feet run these terrible hunting beasts. They are the hounds of KHORNE, savage, unearthly creatures that will chase their victims across the leagues of the known world to bring them to the ground, and then drag their carcass back to the skull throne. They are the embodiment of war and battle at its most unforgiving, like the savage thrill felt when plunging a sword into the enemy's back as he turns in cowardly flight, and cut down like wheat the defeated foe as they beg for mercy. The flesh-hounds are hideously canine, and are some 8 feet long from nose to tail. Their lean, wiry frames have an arched back, and their skin's hue runs from the most violent reds to the bruised purples of flesh and muscle. Along their backs may be spikes of bone or rows of iron plates driven down along the spine, held in place by brazen rivets, each moulded in the shape of the Bloodlord's skull rune, while their necks are encased in heavy iron collars wherein resides their god's abhorrence of all things sorcerers. In this way, even the greatest mage's power may crumble and fail before the hounds and the other demons of KHORNE. Their faces are permanently twisted in a feral snarl. Their blank white eyes are hooded beneath heavy brows, and their slavering mouths contain massive fanged teeth with which they plunge into the throats and bodies of their victims. They may have a mane of blood-matted hair that runs down their backs and across their shoulders. From this emerges more bones, either straight and sharp as spikes, or twisted and curled as horns. Their legs are strong, empowered by unnatural muscle, and they may leap taller than the man in their race to hunt down their prey. At the end of each foot are razor-edged claws of iron, as vicious as meat hooks. The blood god does bestow his hounds upon his mightiest champions as gifts to further the tally of skulls they may take for him. Thus, along the battle line there may be several fell warriors who do command a single, a pair, or even as many as 8 of these creatures. Sometimes they will be chained to a leash, held in the hand of their master, or some unfortunate among his followers, and they will strain and buck as they smell their foe. Others will be allowed to roam freely, though they will never venture far from their masters until the enemy is broken and the rout begins. Some of the learned of mankind who have taken to this study believe simply that this is in their nature as part of their obedience to their God, ensured through the medium of their master. These scholars see only a fraction of the reality. When a champion is rewarded in this way, he becomes a route by which the demon may follow him beyond the reach of the shadow. Just as the hound protects him, so too does the man sustain it with the devotion of his immortal soul to his foul god. But while the gifts of these beasts are not uncommon, the fleshhound's true purpose does not become apparent until the point at which the fighting turns from a battle into a slaughter. When that first foe does turn in flight before the axes of KHORNE, and all his followers know the battle is lost, then the fleshhounds rise to ensure that none may escape the wrath of the Blood Lord. Once the hunt is complete and the prey is slaughtered, the fleshhounds return to KHORNE's throne room, where they gnaw upon their victims' bones and wait impatiently for the call of the hunt to sound once again. In battle, fleshhounds are unleashed against the enemy lines prior to the main attack. They bound towards the foe, hungry for the taste of living flesh. The ferocity of a fleshhound attack tears bloody rents into the foe's formation, leaving the enemy all the more vulnerable to the coming assault by bloodletters and blood crushers. Only steely nerve and certain strike offers any defense against such an onslaught. The primal consciousness of the fleshhound is utterly implacable and knows no fear, save for that of KHORNE himself, and would fight on should even the combined hosts of the world stand to bar its path. When the battle is won, and the enemy broken and scattered, the fleshhounds begin their savage pursuit once more, running the fleeing foe to the ground and tearing them to shreds with their blood-dark claws. Brushers, soul crushers, feet of KHORNE, juggers, and blights of KHORNE. The juggernauts are a mix of demon and machine, used as mounts by the mightiest of champions. These four-legged beasts blend the features of canine and bull, but are covered in profane armor formed of a fused mass of flesh, bone, and metal. Though they may look more machine than beast, beneath this heavy KHORNE-marked armor is the war-hungry heart of a vicious demon. When encountered alone, it is because their rider was slain. A loose juggernaut could wipe out an entire village, to say nothing of a small force of adventurers.